And here we are.
Yeah.
How you
I
doing,
think that makes
Brian?
you think that hello. I think you're de facto host for the very fact that you launch. So you get to say the first words. Otherwise we'll stare at the screen for a while. And yeah,
Yeah, man. Um,
we're doing it again. Number two.
okay, yeah. Let's touch on that first idea that you wanted to approach, which was the uh, so-called secondary symbol within the Mayan
Oh, right.
calendar,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Um, last week we were talking about the Mayan symbols of our birth, and then you were asking about some more information, and I led you down
Hmm.
the path of finding your cross, right? And it came up the second symbol that a certain website gave you, my Mayan Nawal, my Mayan birthday.com.
Right, narwhal. Yeah.
Yeah, narwhal, yeah.
Narwhal. Sounds like narwhal.
Horned porpoise,
Or
yeah. But yeah, so the secondary symbol really is just kind of place you in a context of where you are, as far as the kind of growth that you have and where you are placed in that growth
hmm.
cycle. So when they tell you that you're born during a certain week, that means that that first day of the week is the seed of the potential of where that journey goes in that 13-day cycle.
There's
So,
again they have a 13-day week.
correct. Yeah, so they
Good.
have a
So I want to make sure that anybody who is watching, who is just getting into Mayan, we should probably take it from that place as well, just so that um, they have um,
context.
yeah some context because you laid it out a little bit last week
Mm-hmm.
um, about the 14-day week, and so we're talking 14-day weeks
13.
and
13. It's 13.
13, 13. 14 would be the
Next.
14th day would be the first day of the next week.
Correct, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so the seed day is the first day of that week.
Correct.
And so, okay.
So, the way the Mayan would look at the progression of the week is first in the initial concept of the form of growth, and then the integration of that in the next day. So what I mean by that, that's very cryptic. So each day, each odd numbered day, so 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and 13 represents a stage of growth. Say,
Hmm.
and they relate everything back to trees because that is our most basic understanding of how life works.
Hey, that's common across cultures, right? Because we've
Mm-hmm.
got Tree of Life, we've got
Mm-hmm.
um,
And they understand that
light.
the second symbol, which is a T shape, means breath, spirit, and is representative of a tree.
Hmm.
And so they go from pure potential to spirit within two folds of movement, right? So the tree is a very important concept to the Mayan culture. So in that week, you process through the growth cycle of a tree. You go from the seed to
Hmm.
germination to what's it sprouting into
Sprout.
prolific growth. Then you become into the budding stage, the flowering
Oh.
stage, and
Uh-huh.
the fruit. right?
And then again, you're saying like the odd days would be when those are the growth ones. So those in between stages, like in between each of these.
So the even days, the 2, 4, 6, all of those
It's
days,
like you've
yes, those
reached
would.
like a seed,
Yeah,
and
yeah. So
then you.
you're integrating that knowledge of what it is to be a seed, so that you can fully branch into the next phase of the cycle. So as you understand the seed, and they also relate it to light and dark, right? So you have or light and shadow. So the odd days would be the light days, and the even days would be the shadow days. So you
Okay.
and because that's like a day-night cycle, which is what everything is. That's why we have spins, so we can understand those
Right.
differences in day and night. Otherwise, you're locked in, and it becomes very stagnant. You just end up burning everything away, right? If you're just constantly facing a light source, one side's completely dark or and
Right.
cold, and the other side is burnt and dry,
Yeah.
just too hot. So you have to have that balance. So the first day is again the seed. Then we go into sprouting, which leads again into after you've reached the fruit, you take the seed of the next week and start again. Right? The fruit bears the seed, and so you start that cycle again. So when you look at your own birthday, it begins to show you where you are spiritually in your own cycle and how to best approach the next week, right? So if you're, say, born on the, let's just say the day of prolific growth, number 7, a very magical day. That means
Actually, the
you're
number,
the number, yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
number of the day of the week. Yep.
So when you are in that, you are constantly feeling, probably you're constantly feeling just uncomfortable, just because you're constantly growing, ever present growth, just always growing. So your odds are you face a lot of challenges in your life. But
Yeah.
when you are going through the week, you know that when you get to that 7th day of the week, those are going to be the most potent for you. And then you look to the symbol, the energy, the nawal of what that next day is, that 7 day is. So let's say if you're born on 7/7, 7 deer, the prolific growth of magic. The next 7 would be 7 sun, right? So that means that when you are having this experience of growth, odds are it's because you're completing something that day, right? And you're just so you're experiencing what it is to finally be done with that project, the joy, the experience, the just absolute glow that you're just embodying because of the pride or joy that you feel in the completion of that project. But then there's also that understanding that you're done now. So what's next?
What's next? Yes.
So the best thing I think to do would be complete a project for that day and celebrate knowing that there's more to come, right? So that you can fully integrate that completion within yourself. And so that's kind of, the idea behind it. Plus, it gives you a secondary set of energies that you can work with. So that
Okay.
you, say, if you're like us, born in the day of the dog, or born during the week of the dog,
Week.
rather,
And
which,
again, the week started on the day of the dog, but we were born on a different day of that week. Right.
correct, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Gotcha.
So, for me, that day is the germination of rhythm. right? Of transformation, of the chalice, of the road. So germination. So tapping your roots in to the road. But that
Mm,
understanding can be amplified by that day of the week. That understanding that the dog is not only just the dog, it's also manifestation, it's perfection, it's loyalty, it's a host of other different things that you have to understand and utilize within your life. So most
right.
of the time, what you'll find is that, in just a practical sense, the people that you most closely connect with are those that are born during the same week that you are.
Right.
Or,
I noticed that. I noticed that obviously you're compatible with people that are born with that have similar symbols for either or, whether it's and I know that they had it on the site, but what is I'm just for lack of a better word, I'm going to call them primary and secondary. Like you're defining that the secondary one is the day of the week or the seed day of
mm-hmm,
the week within which you were born,
mm-hmm,
and then I'm assuming that the day you were born gives you your primary or um, symbol.
mm-hmm.
But there are actual names for those. So whatever what I'm calling primary, and then the weak one or the secondary, the week referencing the seed week. Yeah, what are the names for those?
So,
And if we have to look it up, that's fine too. It's not
yeah, it may
necessarily
have to
important,
be.
but it's kind of it'll give kind of literacy for more context as we continue to expand,
Mm-hmm,
because we are just kind of getting started with this, and this is in a large way, this is kind of the primordial impetus for having these discussions to kind of give us inspiration, and we are both in the week of our seed week is dog, so there's a strong connection there,
yeah.
and I don't of my close family. The storm, the day of the week that I was born on, is I only show up in my immediate family. I have one brother and then my two parents.
Mm-hmm,
In my immediate family, I only show up in their growth, like that I would be compatible with them in terms of growth, but I'm not compatible with them, or I just don't show up as a sign that would be compatible with in terms of getting along well with, or like I think those are the two that the site divvies it up to.
mm-hmm.
Um, but ultimately, any sign that matches means that you're going to be compatible with that person in some
Right.
way, whether it's as a learning opportunity, as a growth opportunity, or just because you'll be kind of simpatico in the way that you get along or see the world.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. And that's not a bad thing necessarily. Because,
Right. That
uh,
not having a direct or the growth part, or what part's not
yeah,
bad.
no, all of that, just everything that you said, but specifically,
Everything's bad.
specifically, not necessarily being around constantly in your nuclear family's life, except in points of growth, because you in
Right.
particular are incredibly potent, incredibly powerful sign that shows up in, yes, times of growth, but you're also forcing them to go through this trial by fire and show them that they have to be on two
Ugh,
solid feet in order to
how annoying
survive
that must
that.
be.
Oh God, yeah. I mean, it's
Yeah, how
but
annoying. It's
I'm
like,
sure
oh,
they.
Ryan's always trying to get us to improve and be better. And he's showing up. Yeah, no, I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of reality to that. So I think that's why it kind of touches that. It's like, and there's also a feeling, as I was recognizing that or realizing that, I'm going. Um, I just this desire within me was like I want to know who of my friends are compatible with the storm.
Mm-hmm.
And one that I saw was like a jaguar. I was like, man, it'd be cool to be a jaguar.
Bro, oh
Uh,
man, there's a
just
lot that
being
comes with
badass.
that.
I mean, versus dog, because like a dog is just a dog. And then there's like it doesn't have like cat. It's like
Well,
jaguar. So it's like,
well,
no,
okay.
I mean,
It's funny you say that because we refer the dog is literally a stepping point in the evolution of everything that is. So it's the manifestation of consciousness in a solid body that can make forward movement, and we know as to be the most loyal creature that we have in our
yeah, no.
existence.
I mean, nothing against the dog. I
Right.
mean, truly.
But
Uh,
you're absolutely right in saying that the jaguar is super powerful and
mm,
incredibly magical.
I mean, we can think of cats and dogs across cultures
Mm-hmm.
having a strong presence throughout and representation.
Mm-hmm.
There's also an owl figure, and I know that owl is really big in Norse.
Yeah.
Odin and stuff.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
not as big
No.
in
No. No.
in
No.
Mayan, maybe.
No. I don't mean to disregard the significance of the owl. I just don't think the
Well, we're
owl is the
bashing
right
owls
is.
now, people.
No,
All
I
you
just
owls out there, all owl fans, wisdom's not that important. You're right here for
yeah. It's those big eyes, man. I can't get past them.
yeah.
They
It's
creep
just
me
the
out.
big yeah, exactly.
No. Not
They
even
catch
close.
everything.
No,
Hmm.
my only contention with the symbol of the owl is I really don't think it's an owl. I don't think it has anything to do with an owl. And I've had different things in my life show me that this is not the case. It's just
Hmm.
that's what we've been told at large, and I honestly think it's a little key that we need to address.
So you're
Uh,
saying there's a distinguishment there too between that and the dog. You're saying the dog is the actual like a representation of physical moving forward or yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, am I
yeah,
getting that right?
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, because now you've got a creature that can bound forward, understanding what it needs on all 4 feet, on all 4 legs, with that complex stability, because they do have the 5 digits and the
This
source
is
point, right? Well, like we
okay.
discussed before with the having that niche, but they need to have it on 4 legs. You see what I'm saying? So it's 5 and 5, 5 and 5.
Mm, hmm.
So
And
back,
we're something in between too,
yeah,
because two of our uh, 10 points can be up in the air like the owl
right,
and
yeah.
manipulate things in up in space. Yeah, I know. I'm going to touch on stuff, and you're going to go. Actually, I love this. This is a great dynamic.
So just to real quick get back to the owl
To
thing.
get it all out. Yeah, yeah. Let's do it.
I it's often referred to as the owl in the 16th symbol, right? The one right after the eagle, right
How many
before
symbols are there?
Earth. 20. And
Wow.
and I say symbols, they're really energies. That's what they really
Energy.
are. Yeah, it's the
Gotcha.
energy that emanates from the galaxy, and it's modified by the number, the day of the week. So they call it the nawal, that's the energy, and the
Mm,
tone, that's the number. So it's
mm-hmm.
like
There we go.
you're singing a note, but what octave are you singing it at? Right? You're
Got
singing in a
it.
scale, but what note in the scale are you singing? You see what I'm
Mm,
saying?
yeah, yeah.
That's probably a better way to think of it. Is that it's a scale, do re mi fa sol la ti do, do, all that stuff, and then you just which one are you singing at, and
Yes.
then you modify that, based off of. Anyway, I'm conflating the two
So it's
analogies.
the 13th or 16th. It's the 16th symbol,
So the
the
16th
owl.
symbol, which we are often told is the owl, I believe is actually a bee.
A bee.
A bee.
Yeah.
So the symbol, the original symbol itself that is on the carving stone of these narwhals is actually a box on a hilltop. And then every other symbol after that is a little squiggly round thing that just kind of looks almost like a feather. But if you actually look at it and conceptualize that there is a box behind it, that the box has never left, that there's just now this swirling kind of spirally thing in front of you that almost looks like a question mark, is actually what it looks like from a physical standpoint on a 2D plane of what a swarm of bees looks like coming at you, right?
What?
Yeah, and if you look at that app that I gave you, sent to you, even though it's an Android only
It has
app,
the symbol. It has the symbol on it.
it has that squiggly symbol on it, but because it is very descriptive. It's such a perfect description. It calls it the warrior, right? Now we don't necessarily think of owls as being warriors, right? They're very ambush predators, right? They move in silence and then they trap whatever it is and they need in their claws, and they will only speak certain things at certain times.
Effective strategy in war.
It can be.
Although,
But when you think of like true warriors, they're gonna do everything in their power to freak you out and make you demoralized before you even start a fight. Right?
which is a bee, and because a bee will sting you and die itself. It'll martyr. Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
Yeah, yeah, and it's gonna let you know that it's pissed off. It's gonna let you know that it's pissed off.
Yeah, with wasps, that they seem to be just kind of like, hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
and you're like, get away from me, because
Right. Yeah,
but they're not gonna do anything, but they're just gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm here, all right, don't mess with me, see ya.
Sometimes it's just you're in their territory and they're just letting you know. It's like, hey man, back off. This is my spot. Like you don't want to be around here. And so they're just sitting there telling you. Sometimes they're just hungry and curious, so they're gonna explore your smell, especially if you're feeling really good and you start to emanate this unconditional love. You start to smell like a flower. I think this is why Jesus is often referred to as smelling like roses, because he's just emanating this pure love, and it just creates this smell that's just almost addictive because it's so beautifully sweet.
It's just again, it's an energy resonance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if everything is energy, and you're harmonizing with a certain frequency, you emanate that frequency. It registers to anything that can pick up that frequency as whatever it is, whatever that energy is like to be.
Yeah. And so there's also different ways to understand the knowledge of each symbol, of each energy. So the number 16, of which the warrior is 8 and 8, right? So if you go back to the 18th symbol, the 8th symbol, the 8th energy, it's understanding of harmony, of nature, and is the ever-present infinity symbol when you turn it on its side. Now, what is the harmony of harmony? What is the nature of nature, the harmonizing aspect of nature that keeps it propagating? The pollinizers. They're the things that keep harmony in nature. And the biggest pollinizers are bees. And they have 2 sets of wings. They have... Yeah. And so when they go, and they're just there. And so, if you're putting out the right vibe, and you just attempt to talk to the bee, I've been called the bee whisperer among some of my theater friends, and they've just like, Chris, help! There's a bee. And it's like, oh, hey, bee, what are you doing? Come here. This is not the flower you seek. Everything's okay. Just go on. and they usually just like, hey, what? Oh, okay, and then they go. You know, it's just so long as you're just kind of giving that vibe, just giving them that understanding. It's like there's no danger here. Nobody's mad
Yeah.
at you. We're not trying to threaten you. It's love, dude. Like, I thank you
Yeah.
for coming and visiting me, but it's time for you to move on. Go find some flowers. I'm sure you're hungry, bud.
That's that's all nice, and that makes sense for bees. But what do we do about well, who likes mosquitoes and other parasites? But I'm developing an animosity for squirrels and slugs with my garden.
Yeah.
And like I don't want to with the squirrels because I mean they're mammals, so I can pretty easily get how close they are to me, but they're doing the most damage. And then slugs, it's like, come on, they're slugs, but at the same time, it's that same thing. It's like, I'm basically growing very delicious opportunities for them to feed themselves, uh, and putting that out there. Also, living in a kind of damp, rainy environment, where they're
Mm-hmm.
going to thrive already.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, so it's on me to kind of figure out how to connect with the beauty that is the life of a slug
So that thought. Give me just a second
and a
here.
squirrel.
And a squirrel.
The way they just like climb up the trees and go,
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like, all
yeah.
right, all right, we get you. You're there, but that's one
Yeah.
of the nicer sounds that they make.
Yeah.
If I may say, it's like that clattering. That's like doesn't even sound like sounds like they're choking. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's kind of
That's
nice.
that's
It's kind of nice too. That's
yeah.
the least of my worries is the noise that they make.
So this book right here,
Uh-oh.
Anastasia, by Vladimir Megre. I know it's
Uh-huh.
backwards right now, but like, you know.
Oh, I can read it.
Oh, can you? I can't.
Yeah, it's coming through. Yeah, that's
Okay,
interesting.
cool. But yeah, so that book, it's actually a series of books. It's
Hmm.
nine books long. But this one basically establishes like some of the most profound ideas that lead into the expansion in the other books. But the idea is basically just understand that these things are always going to be there. So if you want to work with them in harmony, best thing to do is to make sure that they have what they need, so they don't take from what you need.
Well,
So the best.
it's interesting. That's what's interesting about the squirrel specifically. Like I can understand with the slugs, um, but that's the thing. It's like, but also so that there's balance, right? Like
Hmm.
that's what I don't understand is well. So the squirrels first and foremost, they have what they need. My neighbors feed them peanuts, so they have an abundance of what they need to survive. But they're coming in and they're digging up next to my newly potted plants or whatever. They're digging. Anytime I plant something new, they're coming in and checking it out, and they're like, "Oh, maybe this is a good spot to plant store a peanut."
Hmm. Yeah, I mean
So,
that's the nature of the squirrel is to hoard.
so how do I make that? How do I synergize that? How do I synergize that so that we can live in harmony together?
Hmm.
Just keep bringing out plants because it's also the plants life that I'm also looking for.
Sure.
I'm looking to nurture, and I feel like
Are
they
they
can just get out of my space.
are
I
they
can
digging
be
up the
like the bee
plants?
and buzz around them. You know,
Yeah. Are they digging up the plants? Or are they just digging holes in the
some of them,
pot?
if they're young enough, they will completely destroy the seedling.
Hmm.
Um, they are, you know, it's disruptive enough that it significantly impacts the health of some plants, and it's
Okay.
not all the time. Sometimes it's more. They're digging more little holes than others.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah.
so just to give the squirrel's perspective, you've brought out all of this really loamy dirt, this really easily dug into dirt that has very little plant life. And so what the squirrels do is they hoard everything in the softest patch that they can, as many spots as they can to both.
Because it'll be easy to dig back up
It'll
again.
be easy to dig back up again, but half the time they forget. That's how a lot of like trees get
They need a
planted.
landmark like a plant to come
That
back
can
to or
help.
something.
That can help,
Yeah.
but it's more like, if they're just near an oak tree, let's say, and they've just got an abundance of acorns, they're gonna hide them in every soft patch of dirt they can, and as many as they can, and eventually winter's gonna come and go. They're gonna forget. They're not gonna remember
Mm.
where every single one is because we already understand that the nature of a squirrel. Oh, hey, look, it's just like quick distraction. So what ends up happening is that tree relies on the squirrels to propagate because it
Right.
knows that it's going to forget, and those acorns are going to become a tree eventually, and that's going to actually expand the territory by which it's going to have to grow. That way it won't have to compete with its
Squirrels are
own
the
space.
pollinators. The squirrels are the pollinators of the acorn tree. Well, I mean, in a sense,
Yeah,
you know,
essentially
they're
they're yeah, that part of nature that
facilitating
is
their process. I mean, of course, they don't literally pollinate, but they allow for the greater
expansion.
expansive propagation, and also like probably genetic variants that would, as a consequence, because you're spreading out between oak trees, so that oak trees from further away are mixing with oak trees that are closer,
Yeah, exactly.
or other way,
And then like that pollination can be spread that much farther, right? So even though it's
Right.
not
No, I mean,
necessarily your pollen, your kid's
listen,
pollen is just booming.
I totally understand it now. Like I, I'll just have to put, I'll have to put down a hard mulch. Um,
Or I mean, you could also just cage your plants in until they're big enough, you know.
the cage part, yeah, that's just going to be creative problem solving for me. I have some material that I can use to cage, but it's not sufficient. They can hop really high,
Yep.
and yeah, they've evolved to be the perfect garden terrorist.
Yeah, essentially.
The slugs are just in the same way. They're just kind of like they get to hide in the wet, and they only come out, when it's wet everywhere, wreak
Hmm.
their havoc, and then go hide away again. Or I mean, and also like they're so small and they're so slimy that like to take care of on an individual basis. And when I say take care of, I think you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Uh, it's a useless prospect. It's the same with the squirrels. Like they're rodents that multiplied like bunnies, like other
So
rodents. Yeah.
in the regard of the slugs, I would suggest finding out what a slug's favorite food is and giving them a corner of as far away from your garden with that plant or that food source so that they
Mm,
go more towards that than what you want to grow.
mm.
And I would
Yeah,
also suggest uh,
there's a ton of slugs, but so far they're not doing as much damage. I'm sure there's actually other bugs and pests that are like
mhm,
eating holes in my plants that don't leave a slime trail. So at
yeah,
least the slug is courteous enough to be like, "Hey, I was here. I
yeah,
was eating your plants."
yeah,
And there's enough damage being done by other bugs that eat leaves
yeah,
to that outweighs the damage being done by the slugs. So the
yeah, yeah.
slugs is something that like, hey, I'm aware that they're around. I find them everywhere, but yeah, apparently they have plenty to eat
Hmm.
elsewhere, so they're not necessarily coming right after my plants.
So, in regards to planting and giving you and your family the best possible garden that you could have, I would suggest a video called "Back to Eden Gardening."
Yeah.
It's basically a small documentary on sustainable permaculture that focuses around one particular guy called Paul Gauci. He's
Permaculture. Yeah.
based out of Squim, Washington. So
Oh yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I think we talked about this guy a little bit. Yeah.
Probably, yeah, yeah. I love this guy. Like he's technically an evangelist Christian, but don't let that fool you. Uh,
Yeah,
he,
wait. Yeah, you were talking about this guy.
yeah,
He had a
he's
neighbor's property. He had a neighbor's property that was doing much better,
it had a
right?
lot of
Or
it had a lot of dandelions in it, and he was confused why he was constantly getting weeds in his garden. And it's like, dude, and he received a message like that you're always gonna, yeah, basically. And he often actually uses the Bible as a connection point for understanding through his guidance. So like, dude is very
sure.
pure hearted, very very humble human being, just a brilliant soul. But like he is very connected to the earth and to the heavens, and so like he basically uses the guidance in the Bible and the guidance that he receives as just how to interpret the proper messages that he's getting. That's the way I see it, anyway. But that idea is that, dude, your neighbor is basically cultivating these dandelions because they don't care. They're not paying attention to them. So you're always gonna get them because those seeds are gonna hit the wind and just gonna land in your garden. So like you could either constantly be upset about it, or you could accept it, do what you can to mitigate it as much as possible if you want, but it's always going to be there. So just accept it as part of your existence, or be frustrated with it constantly. Yeah.
Yeah. I just went through that experience with my front yard. I battled the dandelions for a couple days, and then the I don't know YouTube algorithm sent me a video that's like, "Hey, did you know that dandelions are a medicinal? Everybody thinks they're a weed, and they're actually have been used for medicine for 2,000 years." And I'm looking out into my yard where I put some weed and feed, and all my dying dandelions, and I was like, "Oh, well, I could have just left you alone." And I feel bad about that now. But they'll be back. Like I just don't. I'm just not going to treat it anymore, and I just know that they'll be back and it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because yeah, it was another garden YouTuber that was talk. They call it lazy gardening, but it's basically permaculture,
Yeah.
and the idea is that you let the weeds that are natural to the area grow, and they cover the ground because Mother Earth doesn't like to be naked.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And
and so yeah, and by doing so, you have a natural mulch,
mhm.
and and yeah, and also like there's a whole ecosystem that happens underneath the soil.
Oh yeah.
So all the plants and the roots bring each other different nutrients by just by how they work.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. There's a huge neural network based off of the root structures of trees, plants, and the mycelium in fungi. So,
Hmm.
like, they're all communicating all the time, telling each other, hey, I'm getting cut down, hey, I'm getting eaten, hey, this tree fell over, we need to support, or whatever it is. They're all communicating and trying to help each other as much as possible. So, there's a note in this book that when you're creating your own garden, as much effort as you put into crafting every single aspect of your garden and pathways and specific plants that you want to have, the best thing to do to keep balance is to take a small piece of forest, of natural forest, whether it's like a patch of moss or something, or like a section of grass, and putting it somewhere in your garden so as to create the proper microbe biome, to have the proper communication, and to honor nature as it truly is in the wild, while honoring what it is that you are creating in your garden so that you can thrive. and it keeps everything in balance. It really does. Like there's
Kind of
been.
like, yeah,
Go ahead.
the same way that people, have certain gems or stones because they kind of bring a certain energy or a certain calm, or they filter things. And
Yeah.
so, like, having the presence of, I mean, it does still feel a little strange. Like, I understand that conceptually, but at the same time, like, take there's kind of like a model. Like, you're kind of bringing, like, hey, hey, look, the wild is here. But you're also kind of like making a zoo out of that particular piece of the forest and putting it in a cage, which is your garden. Um, I don't know. I mean, but that's what you're doing for all the plants. Is you're kind of milking them for their seed, for their fruit, for their.
Yeah,
But but that's all part of the cycle. I think
yeah,
that's
they
all well understood by all
that
the things that buzz, crawl, and grow.
yeah. That's their gift to us, whereas we give as much as we can in love, attention, nutrients to them, right?
Yeah.
So like, and
I
that's
just love
their
that.
that's
I love that I've ultimately commandeered this conversation so far today to be about gardening. But gardening
no. It's
is
good. It's good.
definitely, yeah. No, I mean it touches on. Were we talking at one point about better to be a warrior in a garden than
A gardener in a war.
a gardener in a war?
Yep.
And yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know.
So,
I mean,
are you
it's
saying that
better
you
to
need
be
to train
both.
in martial
I don't know.
arts?
It's just better to be. Sorry, what?
So, are you saying you need to train in martial arts?
I've wanted to for a long time. If I wasn't so busy, you know, um, I don't know, with everything else.
Right.
But yeah, I first got trained to be a gardener because I think ultimately the war is there are so many battlefronts. Whatever you want to be a
Mm-hmm.
war is it's ready, and there are people waiting to fight you for it.
Mm-hmm.
Not just people. All of existence is
Right.
in a sense a battlefield.
It's a
So
psychological, spiritual war, but a physical war. I mean, yeah. They say it's the strongest, survival of the strongest, survival of the fittest, but it's not. It really isn't. It's the advantage of being just strong enough not to be the weakest, which is weird to say. It's because like it's the sick and the young that die first. It's always the sick and the young that die first, the most vulnerable. So
but
it's
that's only on the physical plane too. I mean, so like, well, I mean, I guess what I'm getting after here is like sick and the old, but that just sends you. That just means that your soul will move, into eternity, and the next opportunity it will have, it's just the sooner you'll next get your chance to enter the physical race in some other place. But that could be degenerative, or that could be generative,
yeah,
depending on how you fared. Did you learn anything? Did you grow
right, yeah,
from your
exactly.
last trial as a mineral? Did you turn yourself from carbon into a diamond? If so, oh, we got a better spot for you this time. You were really patient. You were in that hard place for a long time, and transmuting from coal into diamond is really, really hard. It's a kind
Yeah,
of a beautiful
it's
thing
a lot of
that's
pressure, a lot
possible.
of heat on
There's a
you
lot of pressure for the whole time,
the
for
whole time.
thousands and thousands of years, millions. I don't know how long it
I
takes.
mean, like, what? But what is a timeline to a mineral? Because you're moving at such a slow pace anyway. That could be a perfect equivalency to what it is to be organic, in that
Oh,
sense, right?
100%.
Because we're able to move
Right.
faster. That means our spiritual acceleration has to move faster as well.
Ugh, what pressure there is. Yeah.
And I mean
It's
that.
kind of funny too. Yeah, in that sense, it's like as soon as you start kind of going down this path on your own volition, it's
Mhm.
only inevitable that you go like, ah, man, I wish I was curious about this stuff sooner, or like that somebody had turned my nose to it. I mean, it's always there for you, but like it takes, I don't know, it doesn't necessarily have to take a tragedy or, but like enough life experience or enough stuff happening to you before you're going, oh, like where you're open enough. We're like, I'll take any advice at this point, you know.
Right? Yeah. When
Um,
you start seeking outside of
and
yourself.
yet still, just being open isn't enough either. You got to be open, and then also going like, you still also have to be able to like detect. Uh, I think open is a start,
Hmm.
but then
Yeah.
you have to be able to detect where the direction is, and you're going to make mistakes. So ultimately, you're doing
Bro.
it the whole time.
Yeah.
You're doing it the whole time.
Yeah, yeah,
You're doing it the whole time.
you're following your curiosity and the energies that are driving you. Most oftentimes when we are consciously aware of the things that we want to pursue, at least in modern times, those things aren't necessarily the first option that we can take. So we follow whatever thread that is available to us. It's like if you're interested in like planes and stuff, like maybe you get a book on it, or maybe you start building models, you know, and you start learning how the thing works and how it's built, and
Yeah.
then the
No, you
engineering
don't
that goes
just step
behind
into a
it.
cock. You don't
Right,
step into a cockpit.
right, yeah, yeah,
You don't grab your welding flare and just get to slapping some metal sheets of metal together and
right, yeah, 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 yeah,
expecting to fly.
right, exactly, yeah, yeah. You start somewhere, you know, and just the natural progression of your life tends
Yeah.
to lead you into that direction, and then sometimes it's just that forward conscious thought. It's like, oh, wait, hang on a second. It's not necessarily forward conscious thought. Maybe it's a heartfelt thing, or maybe it's an emotion that you've felt, and it just pulls you in that direction. It's like, oh, what the hell is this?
Hmm.
What is that? Or you're just asking somebody that you're really curious about, dude, what? Why do you think that way? You know, and then you find some little thing, and that leads you to something else, and that natural link that the universe creates leads you down this path of things that you never thought you needed to know but are grateful for, and blah 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 blah, all the way down to like boiling down essentially into what is the evolution of your soul, your spirit, your mind,
Hmm.
your heart, everything, you know. And so that hopefully you just become a more embodied person. Sometimes you find out some really, really tragic stuff, and it forces you to address it in a way that you never thought you would have to. But that in itself is another step of growth. And I'm fucking rambling now.
Well, no, but no, that's great because I was following along and it made me think. You're talking about you might stumble on something that is so revealing. It makes you recognize. I mean, these are you hope to uncover these when not through traumatic experiences because like traumatic experiences like you're living through it and it can seem harder, especially if you're living through it in the immediate sense that is happening to you right now, or it just happened to you, and you're trying to process it. Um, it's all the more difficult to have the presence of mind to go, oh, this is a learning experience. I'm going to grow from this, and so that you can process it that much quicker.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not that you're like detaching and not, but you're literally processing it so that it doesn't weaken you. It starts to strengthen you.
Mm-hmm.
The experience is something that you need to experience in order to grow, and it not doesn't make it doesn't shouldn't diminish it in any way.
Mm-hmm.
Ultimately, what I'm getting at is like because it sounds like you can kind of uncover these things, and I've kind of started to go like I wonder what my past lives must have been like, so to influence the kinds of experience or why I am experiencing life the way it is right now. Like I can't wait to potentially get a peek into the kinds of lives that I must have lived before. The soul, my inner being, so that to make this life, and yeah, am I generating or am I degenerating, or like to what extent I have done that in the past? Like, because I'm sure that that's not a straight line either. As you live multiple lives, right? Like certain lives, you kind of can't keep up with the challenges, and they make you go, screw it. You know, I'm just
Yeah.
gonna. It's worth it. It's not worth it. And then so then you get you get recycled back into the ether,
Mm-hmm.
and when you come back in, it's like, okay, here, how about this setup? Maybe you'll learn the lesson this time, so that it gives you that opportunity again to. So anyway, I can't
Yeah.
wait to maybe get a peek into what that is, because that also influences your curiosities,
Mm-hmm.
why you are driven to certain things, or your attraction to certain ways of being, or planes,
Yeah.
whatever it is, or your aversion to squirrels, whatever.
Right? Oh, dude, no, I totally hear what you're saying. Because I have peeked into a couple of my past lives, and the last life that I lived, I'm pretty sure was finalized by an incredibly tragic experience. Because the two times that I really got the full window of what it was, like I just broke down and cried harder than I've ever cried in my life. Because it was, I had the realization of what it was that killed me, and it wasn't good in any way. Anyway, however, it made me understand why I'm so blessed in my life today, in this life,
uh, right,
because of how tragic that was, and what my
right,
mission is in order to correct that karma.
right. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, it's kind of curious too,
as
like,
my alarm goes off.
yeah, it's kind of curious too, just how, I don't know, just how that translates, like, because I've heard tell. Again, I'm kind of like the newbie, or just dipping my toes in, but I can't wait to, you know, get all wet. Uh, uh, is that how? No, I lost the thread, but that souls kind of like see their life plan before they jump into the body and get incarnated.
Mm-hmm.
That they kind of see the checkpoints, or they kind of get a map of kind of what they're going to experience, and that it's kind of selected based on the idea that, okay, yes, this will help me learn the things that I need to learn. I'm going to go through the struggles and experiences that I need to, in order to grow, in order to do better. And our soul's ability to select that probably is based on, it has to be based on past experiences
Mm-hmm.
up to that point. And maybe whether we are generating or degenerating has to do with our spirit's general angle at life.
Mm-hmm.
uh, do we want to see things drive towards the light or towards darkness?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Uh,
Have you ever
but
seen?
again, based on our past experiences, like past full life experiences. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, no, life keeps telling me that it's absolute garbage and shit. Like, it must be extinguished. And this life path will give me the best opportunity to make that happen. Oh my god.
Uh,
And that's happening at the same scale as the light. It's just that the
mm-hmm.
light is, maybe just edging out the dark. That's kind of intense too. Is that you won't be able to ever extinguish either to any significant degree. It's always going to exist in an
In
equilibrium,
a balance.
because that is the totality of everything.
Yeah.
Everything is everything. So
Yeah.
you
And I mean,
can't believe in infinity without it. So
right, exactly. Yeah, so I mean, just in the idea that there's just a little bit of light eking out over the darkness in this world, I presume that due to the idea of balance, each universe, say in a multiverse, has its own parallel that is the exact opposite, where the dark is just eking out the light in that
oh,
yin yang cycle where yes you're implanted in say the darkness, but there's always that seed of light that's constantly there and present, or the opposite where you're just in a world full of light and everything's white light. There has to be that seed of darkness in there provide contrast. Have you ever seen the movie The Fountain
Yes. Oh man,
with Hugh
I
Jackman?
love that movie.
Yeah,
Oh yes,
yeah,
yes.
dude. Yeah, yeah.
What are you gonna say about it? I love
So,
it.
well, I mean,
Yes.
it's just that whole idea that every life that you live has its parallel in each life that you live, and it's all constantly pulling into the spiritual growth of your soul. And as you progress through these lives, your soul learns these lessons, and if you can harmonize all of your lives, you can grow past these karmas that you've built up for yourself and attain a different layer of enlightenment, leaving behind that which your soul knew and reaching a whole new point in existence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It ain't easy,
No. Oh, God,
man.
no.
Harmony is tough, man. When there's so much noise, and you gotta figure out how you're. Yeah. Yeah.
So, when in that movie, The Fountain, one of Hugh Jackman's lives, or Hugh Jackman's character's lives, is conquistador, right?
Right.
He's in love with the queen, like, and there's that clear connection between them, though it can never ever happen in that life. So he must prove his love by devoting his life to her mission that he charges her with, and that part of it is running into finding the fountain of youth, the fountain of life. But protecting that fountain of life is a group of shaman and indigenous people that know the value of this and protect it with their utmost. Because if evil gets it, then we're all done for. So they have to protect it. And towards the end, spoiler alert, when Jackman's soul reaches this whole new level of enlightenment because he's connecting through all of his lifelines, timelines, this image of Jackman's character's soul just comes through in full Buddha form, and the leader of that group of Native Americans of I would presume Aztecs or Mayans are recognizes what he's seeing, is shocked by it, but immediately reveres it and says Apu, which is the word of the 20th symbol, the sun, the light. Like it's the full acknowledgement that this is his soul, and his soul has appeared in its full divinity, and I must honor it. This guy is chosen to be here. His soul is destined to be here. And if I even try, especially after he's proven himself to be just a dynamite warrior, for me to intercede would be to not only ruin the timeline, but to corrupt or halt the growth of his soul. And so
Right.
he honors and recognizes it and lets him pass. Now, when he actually gets to the Fountain of Youth, he fully becomes part of nature, right? Which is quite a traumatic experience for him. But
Holy moly, yeah.
yeah, but it's also like a major part of his growth as a soul, because not only was his conquistador life very, you know,
Bleak?
yeah, there was a lot of bleakness to it,
Well,
but like he was also
bleakness to it from the outside. Bleakness from the outside.
Right,
Because,
right.
like, what he. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that he was very much an aggressor. He was very much,
Yeah.
at least from a societal aspect, like he was destroying a lot. As though the only way for his life to truly come back into balance in that timeline was for him to become part of nature in the purest sense. Reintegrate
That's
back
interesting,
into
too.
life and propagate.
If you look at the three different timelines or the three lives that he lives, yes, the conquistador is very much tip of the spear. They're all devotion.
Yeah.
They're all pure devotion throughout. Because I know that there are like I don't know, in the Yoga Sutras or whatever. There's multiple different types of commitments. You can either physically be committed, anyway, I'm going to butcher those different delineations, but essentially, devotion is one of them, and so that's definitely thematic throughout. But that um, um, the by the time he's in the third timeline, which is presumably in the future, presumably, I guess. Actually, it could be at any time. I that one's kind of could be transitory, but I think it's assumed that it's like in the future. I don't know,
Right.
or it's symbolic of like at a cellular or atomic level or something. Um, uh, but that one is the seemingly most um, least destructive. Because
Yeah.
he's very much in meditation the whole time, or he's just having just a little bit of the tree, as sustenance.
Yeah.
He's protected by like a fragile looking bubble floating through space, um, and just whispers of this feminine presence. Kind of like comes and visits him.
Yeah.
Um, and versus the Conquistador, which is very, very visceral, very like gritty and greasy and like
Yeah.
very physical.
Yeah.
And yeah, he's got to prove himself physically. He's got to go to this new world. He's got to travel halfway across the entire planet, the known world. He's got to battle through everything, and physically becomes the tree of life in the end.
Yep.
And then the middle path is modern day, and
Yeah.
he's a scientist, he's a doctor, and he's trying to come up with a cure for cancer. But it's kind of like left up to you to kind of assume like what kinds of, I mean, it's very physical, but at the same time it's very mental too. It seems like he's trying to save his queen, his wife,
Yeah.
from the cancer that's gonna subsume her. But like we know, like in today's health world, what damage is done to find cures, in either harvesting resources, in clinical trials, or the trials done to animals or whatever, to have the modern comforts that we have today. Even in that, like you're seeing three different approaches to the same concept. I mean, I mean, I've loved that film for a long time. For that very reason, I felt like probably a strong connection to it because it. I don't know. I love anything that kind of like expands time and kind of like condenses time at the same time. Simultaneously.
Yeah.
Forces you to kind of look at something. The way that it does that, I think that's why like Crash, like was really popular, the movie Crash, because it's like takes like 9 different timelines or 9 different stories, and you get to see everyone's perspective. So like from one event you get this extrapolation and you get this kind of expansive, like, oh, everything's connected. And so movies that can do that, they kind of really go, oh, it's all connected, and we can learn from, if we take a little bit of time and patience to think about what's motivating us to do anything, we can be overwhelmed with the opportunities for different choices, or hopefully we can get a little bit more of a window or direction of where to go with the next moment.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was really made prominent in his back to the movie The Fountain, in his approach during the modern era, where it's very clinical, very sterile, very clean. Like you're removing as much of nature as you possibly can in order to try and find out how it works so that you could fix it. But at the same time, while he's become so devoted to this idea of fixing it, he's losing the opportunities for him to actually experience life and enrich both his and his wife's lives.
Right.
No.
Like instead of he's spending all of his time in the lab, or and not taking advantage of what time he does have with her,
Right.
which is the yeah.
And it's not until the end when he reaches enlightenment that he can actually, oh, that's what it is. That's what I'm doing wrong. I'm too focused on the fix and not focused enough on the person. Not focused enough on the heart, on what needs to happen, the true balance.
Oh man.
It's like, yeah, okay, so you might find a cure for cancer, but at what cost? Right?
Right.
So you found the fountain of youth, but what did it take for you to destroy in order to find that? Because he's cutting swaths through the forest, the jungle, right? Just absolutely decimating portions of natural reality. And that's part of why I think why the Aztecs or Mayans or whomever it is that's protecting that is just like, no.
This is an evil
seen,
force.
right?
Yeah.
We've seen your kind before, and you bring nothing but death and destruction. You're not allowed to be here, and as a result, because of your actions, we're going to kill you.
Where was I hearing too that the conquistadors, when they came over, I was hearing this recently too, that they targeted the shamans first. And it's like, well, yeah, because they're the ones that are in touch with, oh, no, these guys aren't gods, like any more than we are. So,
Right.
they're the you got to target them and get people to turn against them because that's how you can. It helps that you brought measles, mumps, and smallpox because that'll take care of most everybody. But and also your armor and everything else from the new world, your machines and newfangled modern technologies or whatever
And
of the time.
these weird creatures that you've brought with you from your world, horses. They'd never seen a horse before, so like, what is this monstrosity? There's a horse with shininess on it. What the, you know?
So, I mean, something tells me that like we're about to like there's definitely a feeling or a sense that we're about to approach another moment like that, where the new world is pretty much everybody in humanity, and the invading force is going to be not necessarily alien, but like, AI, or like not being able to tell what's real and what's not. Anything that you could imagine could be faked or simulated right before your eyes, so you won't know if you're waking up into your life or not. And it's going to have a similar kind of devastating impact on whatever, if we're assuming that this is the real reality, which by all means and intents and purposes, you might as well, right? Like treat it like as if it were,
Yeah.
because your only hope to break the chains is to do your best with whatever you are presented with. And that can be just as much skepticism as it is openness to the possibility that this is what it is, as well. Somehow you have to balance those wherever you go.
Yep.
And trust. I think ultimately, skepticism is one thing, but we like to think in our scientific brains that to be a skeptic is like we take pride in the intelligence to be a skeptic. I don't know if I believe you, but it's much more difficult, and I think it's much more the light to accept the possibility of everything. If you have to open yourself up to the possibility of everything being true, like there is no fake news, right? That everything is true somewhere in some way, at the very least, right? If it's true in someone else's mind, then it's true there. It may not be true in the reality here anyway. So it's just that, being open to that, and then letting that be true. That's your only escape. That's your only chance of being able to ground yourself in where you are and who you are or what this is. Regardless, doesn't matter if it's a simulation or not, if this is the reality or not. Your best chance of doing well with it is to Yeah, is to accept. So I'm gonna slash that back and say, man, I think it's an easier route to be a skeptic because that leads to fear, it leads to doubt,
Yep.
fear leads to anger, anger leads to the dark side. So
I love it. Yeah, and I mean, yeah, the amazingly enough, George Lucas's interpretation of how the universe works in large is pretty damn close to how things operate in this universe that we find ourselves in. So I mean, if you operate, yeah, from that skepticism and doubt and fear and hatred and anger and all this, anger and hatred and darkness, then the opposite is true. Love and faith and acceptance are the paths to, and truth and knowledge are the paths to light and full embodiment of what the soul means to be. So, yeah, that's
yeah,
that's pretty amazing. Did you hear about George's passing?
George Lucas passed. Oh, I had not heard about that.
Yeah, rip.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Well, right around May the 4th, and Revenge of the 5th.
yeah.
You know what day or
Not
just around then?
precisely. Is a few days ago. I mean,
Oh,
I've
okay.
found out through somebody else's post online. They're just like, oh, I just heard about George Lucas today. I was like, what?
Whoa. Whoa, he also was born on May 14th. Weird.
Yeah. So,
So,
what?
oh, that's kind of
That's
interesting too.
tomorrow.
Like nobody cares about it, but like I wonder like if there is any significance kind of circle it back to the Mayan calendar stuff or the Mayan zodiac or the what is it?
Tzolkin.
Nawal?
The Tzolkin, the
Nawal?
Nawal. Yeah.
Yeah, Nawal. Um, Sulkin.
Wait, hang
I wonder if like your
hang on,
death day. I wonder if your death day has any significance too.
hang on.
He's not dead.
No, he's not dead. Ah, that bullshit.
Somebody
I'm
somebody
sorry.
pulled one over. Yeah. Whoa!
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah,
Breaking
yeah.
news. Was that just like a scam?
I must have been, man.
You know
I've
what's
been
funny about that? I just got done with a diatribe about like
being
skepticism
fooled and all this. Yeah.
and knowing.
I just
Here we are
blindly took the
about to
faith.
spread rumors that yeah about that George Lucas is dead. I
Yeah,
was,
but you know that's the world of the internet, isn't it? Just like it's a wash of everything. The truth, lies, people's assumptions, people's trying to decipher what the reality of things are, and yeah,
but I
propagation
don't know
of.
that that to me seems like a reflection of the yin yang just as well, right? Like I don't know that the internet or our modern technology has changed that to any significant degree. And maybe I just need to I need a challenge to this ideation because it might have picked up the pace, but like based on when we were born, like we assume so much becomes so quickly. We just accept because we were raised where there was cars and there was printed paper and stuff, and we just accept it because it's the world. Humans are incredibly adaptable, and that's kind of like what makes us truly unique compared to other species. Is like we can live so many different ways. Then maybe that truly is our superpower in other ways, because like if everything has consciousness anyway, I'm kind of going off on another spiel there, but ultimately that yeah, I don't know that this age of the internet is actually confusing our reality that much different than take away much of our technology,
Right.
except for maybe pre-technology, right? Like when we were literally just tribal living. Even still, like as soon as we had clothes and stuff, and we could kind of like we go into environments that we couldn't before. Is that real? Like, you could be like, wow, like
Right.
I'm staying warm even though I'm in a really cold place. It's winter time of year, like, whoa, like how is this possible?
Right.
You're still, and you're facing it on such a more, ooh, like just like real, like you're feeling it, like
Yeah.
way
Like
more than we are now. Like if anything, we're detached, so we're so much more detached with our technology, so that we can accept the grandiosity of what's possible. Even more so, we can accept more of those things versus it being one very real, very present. This is not quite reality,
yeah.
in a lifetime. You don't have to go far. You don't have to go as far. The further back in time you go, the closer you get to modern age, you have to go further to. You have to work harder to make a reality. If I have to make an AI system that can simulate you. I have to make the Matrix basically, so that you
Right.
will, not. You have to believe that there could be a Matrix and that we can all be just puppets of the machines that we've created. Um, um, yeah.
Yeah.
So I long for an argument that would compel me to think otherwise about the fact that all this talk about the internet and social media and what it's doing. It's like, no, those things were already there. If anything, they are, and again, they're just tools. So yeah, they can make these. They can make these things happen faster, seemingly faster in terms of our entire evolution, but they're always going to be there. They're always going to be things that we're dealing with.
Yeah.
Our vanity with social media and our social, how we're represented socially. Those kind of problems are always going to be there regardless of social media. Just
Right.
because, so the same thing with the internet, like knowledge and what's real, what to believe in, what's not. Like you wouldn't have the opportunity to search for other opinions
Right.
hundreds of years ago. You would have to either accept the opinion that was given to you or weigh it against how you'd lived your life up until that point and be
Yeah.
like, well, I appreciate you bringing me this Bible, but I can't read, and so I have to accept what you tell me, and my life isn't that great, and so and I don't, and your life looks pretty cush. You seem pretty excited. I'm skeptical about what you're presenting here, or maybe both ways. Wow, you looks like life is working out pretty well for you.
Right.
I might as well listen to everything that you say.
Right. Yeah. And so what I'm hearing from you is basically these things are just an extension of the things that we've already had in our
Totally,
lives, our evolutions. There's just like
totally.
now they're being brought to the forefront because we're seeing more viscerally and more often the things that we've been dealing with, and we're kind of blaming the provider of those things as opposed to just taking on our own responsibility of using good discernment and judgment to
That's
make our
that's always been the
choices.
task. The task has always been the same, right? It's always uh, look to yourself, look inside you, and trust yourself as much as you can, because the answers are in there. You wouldn't be in existence right now if your ancestors hadn't successfully navigated their existence to that point.
Right.
So something had to go right to get you to where you are right now, and that you could even consider whether you're going to accept something new or not is an advantage, so that you have some amount of time to make a choice. Like and then the idea that I'm getting is that it's all about that it's just scope. It's just like all technology is like a tool, like a scope that you can either zoom in and get like, oh, this is what it looks like in a granular perspective, or zoom way out and this is what it looks like. This is what's happening to the whole world, so I'm seeing it on a grand, big picture scale. But even the world is just a microcosm, a pale blue dot. Thank you, Carl Sagan. Right, like on pantheon of all of existence. So like
Mm-hmm.
you can keep scoping it out. And so I think all of the tools and technology that we come up with are just different scopes, different tools to by which you can either zoom way and narrow your focus, or zoom way out, and see. So zooming out being more comprehensive. I get to see more of what uh, in an infinite universe. Well, you could go infinitely either direction.
Yeah.
But that's to me that seems degenerative or generative, depending on light or dark.
Yeah.
Depending on which you're.
You can look at the parts themselves that make up the thing and determine that that's how the thing works, or you can look
Right.
at the whole, of how society works, that zoom out and say, oh, that's how the
Yeah.
thing works, or you can look at the individual, realize that it's not just the sum of its parts, but it's more than that, and that what
Yeah.
those parts create expand into more than the sum of their parts and constantly builds in that regard. But it always comes down to the individual doing exactly what they feel is best. And having,
Right.
from what I've read recently, it's like, it always comes back to faith in yourself and what your reality is and what reality is presenting to you. Like, yes, this is happening. What is exactly that is happening? It could be fake. It could be real. I'm experiencing this. What am I learning? All right.
Yes. Oh my gosh. What can I learn from this? It could be the only question that we need to ask in any situation. If we are struggling with whether it's real or whether to believe something or not, it's like, well, what could I learn from it depending on what choice I make moving forward in this place, in this state, in this context.
Yeah.
What can I learn from it? Regardless of what I'm looking at or what I'm experiencing.
Yeah.
And that can be very difficult because like I do feel like I get to take that perspective from a place of privilege. Like they're like if life is literal hell, it's near seemingly impossible to. Well, also, it would seem that all signs are pointing you would be in living a literal hell. All signs would be pointing you to, well, you might as well accept. Like that's what they're trying to do. Like we're gonna make you're gonna make you suffer more. We're gonna make it worse until you accept that this is what is. And just accepting that it is what is like opportunity to grow. Like you're cracking the seed open, and you're saying I'm going to become a tree, because a seed starts in the dirt, it starts in the underworld, and it's perfect within itself, right? It has everything it needs to become something else, but around it are bugs and dirt and
Worms.
poop and worms and just scary, nasty stuff. I mean,
Unknown,
from our
yeah.
perspective, right?
Unknown, yeah.
But it's all also, in its world, that's all normal stuff.
Right.
That's just the way it is
Yeah,
on that level. And if you want to escape it, you need to go
in.
through it.
You need to dig
You need to
in.
dig in, yeah.
Yeah.
You need to push out a piece of you into it and go like and feel it for all
And
it
just
is.
spread your
And
toesies in it.
this is what the root is doing under there, right? Or a little sprout
Yeah.
until it finds the light. Go towards the light.
And then after it establishes that its foots are in the muck and the
Forever.
mire and
Always.
that it can feed off of that in that darkness, that it can actually branch out into the light.
Oh my god. So much, I love so much of that. I showed you some of my art, and you know how like I have a fixation with trees. I
Yeah.
have from a young age.
I love
But
that.
it makes all the sense more why I've always been kind of Uh, you know, I laugh when I say it, of course, but like I'm a bit of an arbophiliac. But I mean, that's also why I've become like a gardener. Like I'm not an actual arbophiliac. Now I'm never gonna live that down. But like I think it was how I found, or I've always had a connection to trees. So
Mm-hmm.
I, in the way that we learn to have unconditional love for everything, even the squirrels and the slugs, uh, it was easiest, or I had my first love was probably trees because I had my first connection with trees, and just that I was able to draw them. Uh, yeah, something about they they allow for a lot of mistakes drawing trees
Yeah.
because trees can take so many different shapes and have so many different forms and representations. Um, and like squiggles and like just loop-de-woos down in the ground, like,
Mm-hmm.
and you can go over lines, like if you're making the trunk, you can just to make the grooves in the trees, you can
Mm-hmm.
just, and knots,
Yeah.
they they allow for a lot of mistakes.
Yeah. They allow for
And
just about everything.
the more you commit to it and let that tree grow that you're drawing, and just go, oh, I can make another branch here, or I can, the more beautiful, the more robust your tree drawing becomes.
Yeah. Yeah. Um,
And then yeah, sorry, I was just realizing too that
no.
like that the roots stay in the ground,
Mm-hmm.
and then like you were saying, like you start to use the ground, what you used to think was hell, as your fuel, and it's actually all those bugs and poop and are now fertilizer.
Yeah.
They're feeding you so that you can grow up more. It's not just the sunlight that's giving you what you need to grow.
Right.
Uh, it's more your physical being is all the dirt and that the light is just another fuel source.
Exactly.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Coming back to that Mayan calendar thought, I was just realized that you are the complex stability of that trial by fire. And I mentioned earlier that you can combine numbers of previous understandings and knowledge in the earlier portions of the cycle, like with the bees, 8 and 8, they make
Oh,
16, right? And 8 represents
so everything
harmony in
before 10?
nature. So everything from 12 and below. So it can be 11 plus 1. It could be 10 plus 2. It could be 9 plus 3. It could be all of those things. All of that knowledge is there and present. But what I was thinking most heavily was that because the understanding of the tree and spirit is number 2, manifestation and perfection is the other counterpart to that 2 to make the 10, to make the 12, right? So
Huh.
that could very possibly be why you have such an affinity for trees, because you see that perfection in spirit and you want to harness that and embody it on the page in your creations,
Mhm.
you know.
It's too true because when I was drawing them too, like I'd see the root system, or when I got really abstract with my drawings, this section is like the trunk, and
Okay.
I would see my drawings kind of expand out like this too. So a lot of I did psychology as an undergrad, so I was also thinking about the brain and the cross sections of the brain. And so that became an evolution of my drawing. Is like I'm kind of like doing the head as a kind of like a cup, but also kind of like the same way that the trunk, and that like if you look at our shoulders, it's like this. This is where all of our nerves kind of go down and spread into our roots, and that if our head is like that part of our body which has grown out of the ground, yeah, exactly, and our hair, and but even just everything in our head is the
Mm-hmm.
sky elements, and this is the so that kind of became like little cross sections of the brain. It would still be a very natural picture, like a picture of nature, like kind of kind of in a cup of the mind,
Mm-hmm.
in
Mm-hmm.
a sense.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
So it all lines up every time. So I was just before this, I was watching a video where it's called the channel is called Reveal. Let me get this right so I don't mess it up. Unveiling the Mind. What is it? Oh God. But it literally was talking about these. So the initial thing that I watched, it was just kind of a goofy thing. It was just like I was drawn to. It was just like the Powerpuff Girls are homunculi, right? So if you don't know what a homunculus is, it's a soul in a bottle, basically. It's an artificially created soul in a bottle, and
What a fun name.
right, yeah. There's a whole anime called Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood that is just absolutely fantastic. It breaks into everything that alchemical and has just like this embodiment of what homunculus is. But so this so the channel's called Mind Unveiled. But so what they do is they tie the universes of these different cartoons created by the same people into the same universe through these different alchemical understandings. And one of the things they touch on is the deer ideology, these deer gods. You're talking just now about branches coming out of the mind in this expansive way, and that is a physical representation of that kind of expansion out of your mind. It's literally a branch growing out of your skull, which ends up falling away every winter in a cycle of repeat and regrowth. But that they were showing us that often in the media, and quite possibly in these underground societies that we have in our existence, that these that there are rituals based around this dear god understanding, that the full embodiment of physicality exists below the skull, below the brain, where all this neural network is, and that it expands out. And if you have enough knowledge, that you have these constantly represented. So they were constantly referring to this ritual where they intake. There's a sacrifice. There's a prayer. This horned god appears and provides this black goo, which ends up becoming whatever it is that creates this homunculus. So that black goo embodies that essence of darkness, perhaps, probably. But the way it all works in the cartoon universe is that each of these things is the embodiment of that dear dark god creature, which is in Samurai Jack Aku, right?
Oh.
Which is constantly transforming, has immense powers, and always has horns. Always. And there's multiple times where the black goo creates something or transmutes something into this horrific version of itself. This amplified, just crazy, aggressive version of itself. Like in this show called Primal.
Is your whole library down there, dude?
Yeah, actually, it's for the most part.
No, I love that.
Within reach, even.
I hope that continues thematically too. Is like at least once an episode, you need to reach under and grab a book.
Right, yeah. Well, here, let me just pull this off the shelf just now. Since we're talking about it. But yeah, so it's, I think, an inherent understanding, what you just touched on, is that yeah, we are all basically this extension, this physical embodiment of a mobile tree, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because our roots aren't grounded in the dirt anymore. We've been able to find our niche in mobility, this complex stability, and move our spirits, our branches to a place that provides us what we need with in our nourishment, in our growth.
Mm.
If that made sense.
It does. It does. It just made me think we use because this was also an earworm that I got recently too. Um, that you know, again, it's easy to think that plants and trees don't move, but they do.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you look at plants on a different time scale. Their flowers open during the day and
Mm-hmm.
close at night. They're in different positions and they move throughout the day. They actually have a motility to them, and right, and they spin around following the sun, things like that. And then I would also wager that, again, since they're not burdened the same way that we are in terms of with the internet and our technologies and our modern way of life, that I bet their connection to their offspring and their again like their family of organisms and plant neighbors are much more in communion with each other uh, in that sense that they can they can communicate at range just like we do with our cell phones, but they've
Right.
always been able to do that.
Right. So
And
arguably theirs is quite possibly the real internet because they are truly
the
interconnected.
OG
The
internet,
OG
yeah,
internet, right? And we've just created a facsimile of that so that we can extend our
yes,
knowledge in a physical way as opposed to an etheric
right.
mental way.
I think that's part of our. I mean, I think that's also why like the internet initially kind of came up in this conversation as kind of like it is kind of like a black magic in a sense, because like without all of our technologies, if we were still living in communion with Mother Earth 100%, and had no desire to bite the apple and expand. I feel like that's why it is a test. All of our technology that we come up with is a test. It's like, okay, here's more temptation to live a comfortable life. Like, yeah, it's more possible to not have to grow or learn or evolve as an entity. Here's your opportunity to do that. Uh, as we get, if generalized AI becomes a thing, uh, you know, uh, there's going to be some upheaval. It's going to be terrible in a lot of ways, but I'm sure a byproduct, if we make it through, is going to be basically, yeah, do you want to just subsist and have Ready Player One like haptic suits and live your life basically in VR and happily so at some level of contentment? I'm sure the AI will be able to find infinite ways to entertain you and suck you in and make you feel like you're doing okay and learning and growing. Um, but maybe that's all it is. That's all it's ever been anyway. For everything that exists. Oh gosh, that I can't help but always go back to that. It's like, well, that's probably true too for the tree that just gets its nut dropped in just the right place with the right nutrients and right compatriots, like compared to all of its hundreds of other brothers and sister seeds that ended up just in the garbage or getting decomposed or
Mm-hmm.
not having the right. Nothing's fair ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
yeah,
I,
I don't know. I kind of went off from
yeah,
where I was headed, but yeah,
yeah. I noticed that. Well, and I would like to touch on that too. Direction,
yeah, it's
but
great.
the the idea of just not biting the fruit, right, and just living this
Ah, right.
primal, instinctual way that is, yes, very much in harmony, because you don't have that extra knowledge, you don't know any better. It's just always primal, always emotionally driven, always survival based.
Hmm.
But at some point, you're gonna get hungry, and that thing, other things are eating it, right? Why can't you eat it? So you're gonna take a bite of it eventually. Something's gonna prompt you. Maybe it fell out of the tree. Maybe you didn't pluck it out of the tree. You know, you found it. It's like, maybe it's not a red apple. You know, maybe it's a gold apple. Maybe it's a green apple. Something that you know is edible, but and is not going to kill you. And you're seeing other things eat, like a deer. And deers are going to eat things that are tasty. You know, because that's what they do. They eat the things that they want. You're going to eat that thing, and you're like, maybe there's other things that are like this that taste good.
Hmm.
Maybe there's other things. Oh shit! So it could just be
Are
an
you saying
inevitability.
it's kind of inevitable then?
I think so.
Well, because I mean, like, well, yeah. I mean, I would agree. I suppose.
It's just a phase in the growth.
Yeah, I would need to play it back. I forget what I was kind of going on there, because it's yeah, because I'm not. I think, well, if it was in terms of like technology and kind of like, yeah, of course it's inevitable, but yeah, so maybe we were always having it, because it's not like it was. Because like, and the way the Bible will put it, it's like it was like, oh, we had one apple and everything changed. It's like, no, this is a constantly evolving path of like, because as hominids, with our mobility and ability to move around, we get exposed to different things, and we have to learn. Can I eat this? Can I not? And somebody's got to try it, and maybe they don't end up feeling too good afterwards. So,
Right, yeah.
no, we don't mess with that. Um, um, so, so yeah, ultimately, we are doomed or destined to play in this world. Uh, yeah, I guess I feel like this is going to be cyclical in our conversation. We're going to come at this at multiple different angles at multiple different times, but ultimately, it's always going to end up being. It's just that. Regardless of where you are, where you find yourself, can you use your experience to improve your circumstances? Start with yourself. Can you improve your own circumstances?
And I think that's
And then
the main thing is it always has to come back to self. Always has to come
Yeah.
back to you. And if you can master the internal, see what you've got going on in here, maybe there's things that you like, there's things that you don't like, but you accept them and learn how to work with and or improve those qualities, because they're not detriments, they're qualities, they're attributes that you have to work with, then everything in your life can improve without having to have this external thing to fix it, like AI or certain machine technologies that we've created, right? Certain tools. Like, yeah, this is great. We've got this ring hoe, which is really good, but, like, I mean, you could also just put your fucking hand in the dirt and pull the weed out. I mean, this is a good tool, too. It's all about how you approach it. It's all about what you need. Like, are you capable of getting down to the ground and actually pulling that thing out of the ground? Or is it best for you to actually have that thing, that extra tool, to save your body to keep from doing that? And now that you have the knowledge of creating how to create that thing, you can improve your life in other ways too, because you're not spending that extra time digging into the dirt. Where, I mean, it can be argued the same thing with the technologies that we're creating with the internet and AI and all this. If we use it properly and not abuse it and turn it against ourselves, essentially. Like, I mean, you could probably kill somebody with a ring hoe, right?
Oh,
But I
well,
mean,
yeah.
why would you? Like, just unless you're put in dire straits of survival for yourself.
For sure.
So,
Uh,
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh,
Before
there we go.
before you
Yeah.
go. Before you go. Before I go.
Yes.
Before I go.
Yeah. Yeah. Get it.
Oh, so
Me
what?
go. Yeah. Go for it.
Me? No, you. No, you. Just it's that bread moment, dude. It's that bread moment. That loaf of bread moment. I had one of those last week. I had one. It was just like, no, you go. No, you go. Well, go. Like, none of us is gonna
It's a
get it if you
bread
go.
moment.
Right.
It took me a minute to process that, but yeah, that came up in the first podcast. This
Yeah.
loaf of bread.
Yeah, yeah.
You have the bread. No, you have the Society of Eternal Bread Givers.
Yeah, yeah. Just, I'm so grateful for you. I want you to have this. Well, I'm grateful
Yeah.
for you too. You need to
I
have
don't
it.
need to live. You have it. Yeah.
But we're both hungry. Let's split it. Let's split. That's the real answer,
Gosh,
right?
it's bread. You can rip it in half.
So, to the point of direction, I mentioned finding your cross, right? Your Mayan cross. And you ended up finding a different piece of information was your Mayan birth week, which is a great piece of information to have. The Mayan cross, what it does is it's oriented in cardinal directions, like the energy symbols are, which are also color coded, like the medicine wheel. You've got red, blue, yellow, and white, and each one represents a different cardinal point. Red and blue are always associated with each other because of their opposition to each other, and yellow and white are the same, always associated with each other. So if you're a red symbol, you'll often get along very well and learn a lot from people in that are blue symbols in the same way. And you'll get along very well with people who are the same color symbol. But that also being said, that people that you find in your own week of birth are also very closely tied to you, and you learn a great deal from. Like, I learn a great deal from you, and you've mentioned that you learn a great deal from me. So, with the cross, what it shows you is the spiritual progression in this life based off of the date that you were born, and the balance of your internal energies and machinations, your internal clockwork, how it works. So just taking my sign for example, just because I know my cross the best, my symbol is that of the human, the road, the earth, grass, wildcats, like whatever you want to call it, the chalice. You pointed it out that it's often called the philosopher's stone. So, like, everybody embodies that energy once they hit that layer of consciousness where they can access it and it's available to them. Before that, you embody the symbol before you in a very particular manner. So I believe it's you count 9 backwards and forwards to get your past energy and your future energy. And you count 7 symbols backwards and forwards to get your polarizations, your yin and yang, your male, female, positive, negatives, for how your brain works. So for me, I
9 symbols back in the week. Like
yeah,
9
yeah, yeah.
symbols.
So you would count. You would start with your day. Start with your day. Go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all the way back 9 points, and it should give you the same color symbol, and forwards and backwards, with the proper number associated with it in the week. And the same way for the polarities, but those are typically your opposing color symbol, or cardinal direction. So for me, it's I reside. My energy is in the rhythm of the road. What I came into in my youth was the harmony of the seed, of the knowledge of sexuality, like of reproduction. Like this, it's like I've always known how that stuff works, always. And later on, I found out that has a lot to do with my past life. because of the way I left the world. Was very, very much in a traumatic sexual action. And then the quite possibly the next life or the next major phase in my life will be that of the sun, the flowering of the sun. And so you tend to, from what I understand of the knowledge that I've read about the cross, that's when you the age at which you embody that is around 52, because that's when the cycles of 20 days, or 20 symbols and 13 days, when the cycle of the Sulkin lines up perfectly again with the cycle of the Ha'ab. So you know how I said it was 260 days, right? 260 days Sulkin cycle and 365 Ha'ab cycle. So they all comes back.
We'll need to get little infographics for part of our podcast at some point too, so we can go over all this and then edit in some real high tech infographics.
To make it all make sense.
Because the Mayans didn't make it easy, but it's not easy.
It is
easy if you grew up learning it. If you weren't learning the Pledge of Allegiance and the Gregorian calendar.
It's basically the closest thing I can associate it to is a Swiss watch. There's a lot of gears in that thing, and they will all eventually line up to the exact same point, but it takes, I think it's 52 years for that to happen. So by the time my Mayan day comes back to October 20th, I'm gonna be in my 50s, right? Mm-hmm. The same thing for you. The next time your birthday in the Gregorian calendar style comes together again with your Tzolk'in soul birthday is going to be when you're 54, 52 or 54. I can't remember which it is. I think it's 54, because that would make sense. 5 and 4 is 9. 9 is representative of cycles. So
gotcha. So I got some time. To prepare.
Yeah. So in this time where you're embodying the complex stability of the thunderstorm, you're working towards that next symbol, which for you.
How long have I been working on it then? Or when was the last cycle? When was the last?
Well, the transition, I believe, is when consciousness comes into play full bore. So that's either gonna be when the lights turn on and you're in full alpha brain, or what was it, theta? When you're in your highest layer of consciousness, when the lights turn on, you're forward thinking, making conscious actions. That's either 7 years old or when puberty hits at 12, 13, 14.
Okay.
So
that's that first kind of switch.
Yeah.
First one.
Yeah. So you embody that knowledge of energy because it helps you grow into the knowledge and energy that your birthday is driving you towards.
So we're pretty close to that midpoint then. Before we are 54.
Yeah. I'm already past that midpoint for sure.
Right. Well, because I mean, there's a lot of time. If you cut that time in half, because I'm just making assumptions now, which I guess I will. I'm off to do.
As we all.
But that this timeline would be somewhere in the middle between 7 and 14 and 54, somewhere around our 50s. Mm-hmm. So if you cut that in half, that's 30s. That's your early 30s.
Yeah. So probably somewhere around 32, 32, 33, which is, how old was Jesus when he came back and did his thing? Ancient knowledge inscribed in ancient texts, encoded rather. So yeah, and from what I get, like when I gather, this dude learned everything and came back to disseminate this knowledge, and that's what they killed him for. is because he knew too much. He was doing too much to destroy the fabric
Yeah.
of the balance that the controllers want to have over
Controllers.
us. I'm not going to call them elites
Control
because they're
is
not. They're not elite in any sense of the word.
control in that sense is yeah, degenerative, right? Because it's saying, hey, I'm going to keep you right where you are, so you can't grow, and I'm going to stagnate that, and you're doing that at scale. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, have you heard of the movie the Man Who Came from Earth? I think is what it's called.
Yeah, I
The
have.
man or the man from Earth.
Yeah. Uh,
2007 film. You have heard of it?
I have heard of it. I've not seen it, but yeah, I'm intrigued now.
Yeah, write it down and check it out. And let me know what you think. It's really cool because it's kind of like it's the elevator pitch of it is this guy is retiring or he's moving on from his professorship at some university or college, and so he invites all of his fellow colleagues
Yes, yes, I
over.
have seen this
They
movie.
all
It is
start talking.
so
Yeah,
amazing. John.
yeah, it's kind of mind blowing because if you like philosophy, you like talking about getting deep on subjects, you take all these experts from their various fields and you get them conversing on the idea of how would it be possible for somebody to have uh, been alive
Through all
for
of human
most
existence.
of most of human existence, from prehistory into the modern day. And, spoiler alert, but still check it out because all the conversations that they have kind of really kind of tease it apart, that he is this guy. That ultimately, that he is kind of like proposing. Of course, he needs to leave at the end. He's like, "Oh, I gotta
Yeah.
go," and and then slowly you see it dawn on everybody, like, "Oh, like the reason he had us all talking about that wasn't just because he likes musing on things. Like,
No.
yeah, maybe it was him,
Mm-hmm.
and and he's just moving on to the next adventure. Because
Yeah.
yeah, what would you do if you lived tens of thousands of years? Um, you're still mortal, right? Like the idea is that he's still mortal,
Right, he could still
just
die.
that
Yeah.
he can still die. I mean, the assumption too is that he lived Jesus's life because he had spent thousands of years, getting to learn everything, kind of like you just said,
Yeah.
and um, the presumption was is that he had died and gone to heaven, but ultimately that could have just been like he brought himself back to life, or kind of like in the fountain, kind of like yeah, he was like beaming with an aura of light because he had, I don't know, had accumulated enough power to really have that aura of energy of just sunlight,
Yeah.
or just beaming light of healing or whatever it is,
Yeah.
uh,
Uh,
to bring him back to life. And he was
There's
just glowing. Some people talk about having a sex glow, after you consummate.
right.
But he had the glow of resurrection,
Mm-hmm.
which could only be thousands of fold times that.
Right.
So,
Yeah.
and potentially he was literally floating above them and rose into the sky and flew away. Like I don't know.
Right.
And then you don't need to do that anymore. Like you
Well,
already walked on water, but then you don't need to do it anymore because you're that goddamn cool that yeah, like you would just
yeah.
be like, and peace, yeah, I did it just like I
Well,
said I
and I mean,
would.
and I
See
mean,
you, feel you.
you could also like phase out of reality just by resonating at a different frequency,
Oh yeah,
right?
just by choice, kind of like Celestine
Which
prophecy kind
right,
of stuff.
which
Yeah.
yeah, and which I mentioned before in the past is like the idea that going the other direction, like if say an angel or higher being at a different higher vibration was to come down into our vibration, we would hear this very high pitch as it manifested physically into our reality because it's
That's why that
lowering
happened.
its octave to for us to be able to
Uh,
perceive it. Another
it's so silly.
entity.
I love it. I mean, yeah,
Yeah. So
that all of it's real. that all of it's real is just so much fun because
we got
it
20
seems like
seconds,
a joke. It seems like a joke, but like that's why it's so fun to kind of play with that. That's the reality of what it would need to do to calibrate. It's just so great.
And I think that's
Science
a
too.
perfect that's a perfect note. I think because we're out of time, bro. There
Yeah,
it is.
totally.
Later.
To be